Over the years, we've seen many adaptations, reinterpretations, and versions of it in film and television. However, none have managed to capture the true origin of the creature. Stephen King's novel reveals most of it, but its story only makes full sense when connected to the rest of King's literary multiverse, especially the Dark Tower. That's why what you'll see here is not a superficial explanation, but the most faithful and complete account of its origin, who it really is, where it came from, and why it chose to make Derry its domain. This video also serves as perfect preparation if you plan to watch Welcome to Derry, since you'll understand what truly lies beneath that town. At the beginning of time, before anything existed, there was only darkness, an amorphous chaos, a primordial substance known as the Prim. From that eternal darkness emerged Gan, the supreme deity and creator of all worlds that exist within Stephen King's multiverse. Gan, also known by other names such as the Other or the White, was the first to manifest and the one responsible for shaping time, space, and all the realities that would later inhabit his creation. Among the enemies born from his power arose two opposing forces. The first was Maturin, the cosmic turtle, symbol of good and stability, and it, the embodiment of chaos, corruption, and fear. From their birth, both entities became polar opposites, destined to exist as natural enemies. After establishing the order of the cosmos, Gan took a new form, one we would come to know as the Dark Tower, a mystical stone colossus erected in the middle of an infinite field of roses known as canon-faithful. This tower acts as the central axis or nexus where all universes converge. It is the heart that sustains the balance of the multiverse. The structure of the tower is upheld by 6 beams of energy, each with 2 ends guarded by 12 colossal animal-shaped guardians in total, protectors of its stability. Among them is Maturin. It is said that within his shell rest all the worlds created by Gan, a symbolic image representing the stability of the multiverse in contrast to the abyss of the Prim. But not all beings born from the Prim were benevolent. Pennywise belongs to an equally ancient race known as the Outsiders, entities of pure energy that exist beyond human comprehension. This energy is known as the Deadlights, and although they can project a physical form, their true nature is incomprehensible to any mortal mind. When a human being gazes upon the Deadlights, the brain attempts to make sense of them, translating their incomprehensible form into something recognizable. This is why many perceive them as the shape of a giant spider, even though that appearance does not reflect its true nature. Moreover, looking directly at the Deadlights is fatal. The human mind shatters, control of the body is lost, and only madness or death remain. But even though the multiverse is filled with darkness and chaos, there exists a force that keeps everything in balance, the Dark Tower. Its power extends across all worlds, acting as a barrier that prevents creatures like it from freely crossing between dimensions. This energy keeps the so-called outsiders confined within a realm of perpetual shadows known as the Tadash space, a region of emptiness that stretches between worlds. It is in that abyss, beyond time and space, where the true essence of it resides, in what King calls the macroverse. There it exists in its purest form, a being of conscious, malevolent energy, without physical limits. According to cosmic lore, there was a moment when Maturin fell ill and vomited the known universe. When it beheld this new creation, it understood that something different existed here. It sensed that Earth contained a unique spark, a species capable of imagining, dreaming, and, above all, fearing. It was then that it discovered a depth of imagination almost worthy of notice, and decided to descend into that world. It is important to emphasize that the outsiders can feed on living beings directly, but that is not what they truly seek. Just as we see with Pennywise, their real nourishment is emotion, especially the most intense forms such as fear. Thanks to their shape-shifting nature, they can adopt whatever appearance best awakens emotions in their prey, provoking the sensations they wish to devour. For Pennywise, this emotion is fear, although Dandelo is perhaps the most straightforward case of an emotional counterpart to it. He is a psychic vampire who feeds on human euphoria and laughter, using comedy to manipulate his victims and extract their vital energy. This insatiable hunger for emotion is what draws these creatures to Earth. When the moment finally arrived, it projected a part of itself toward Earth. From that point on, it existed on two planes simultaneously, within the macrocosm as the Deadlights, and in the physical world as a tangible creature capable of interacting with humans. The book explains that it fell from the macroverse when the planet was still forming, long before humans existed. However, the phrase, "it discovered a depth of imagination almost worthy of notice," does not imply that intelligent life already existed, but rather that it, being a timeless entity, perceived the future potential of the human mind even before humanity was born. Although it arrived far too early, it remained asleep for eons, waiting for the moment when those imaginative minds would finally emerge and could feed it with their fears. But all of this raises an interesting question. If the Dark Tower protects the worlds, how did it manage to break through that barrier? The answer lies in the Thinnies, also called tears or thin places. These are weak points in the fabric of reality, zones where dimensions wear down and the boundaries between universes become fragile. Through these natural portals, it managed to slip into our world. Its arrival was not witnessed by human eyes, because at that time humanity didn't yet exist. Even long before the dinosaurs, when the Earth was only just taking shape, the entity fell from the void. From the sky descended a luminous mass, wrapped in fire and pure energy, cutting through the clouds like a dying star. The impact was so immense that it tore a wound into the Earth, and the place where it fell, what millions of years later would become Derry, was forever infused with its presence. The collision released an indescribable force, capable of reshaping the terrain and igniting the skies. It wasn't just a meteorite, it was a seed of cosmic chaos, a life form carrying within itself the very essence of fear. After the impact, it sank deep into the ground and entered a long slumber, waiting for the birth of conscious creatures capable of imagining and fearing. The first known record of its awakening occurred around the year 1715, coinciding with the arrival of the first settlers who would found the town of Derry. Hunger consumed it from within, for it had waited eons for that moment. When humans appeared, it lunged at them with ferocious appetite. At last, Earth offered exactly what it had come to find, the taste of human fear. From then on, it adopted a cyclical pattern, awakening every 27 years, feeding, and then returning to its lethargy. Each cycle began and ended in tragedy, leaving behind a trail of death and desolation that repeated like a macabre clockwork. In 1905, for example, it awoke just before the lumberjack Claude Hurreau massacred several men in the sleepy Silver Dollar Bar. It returned to sleep in 1906 after the Kitchener Ironworks explosion, which took the lives of more than 200 children during an Easter egg hunt. Decades later, in 1924, it emerged again during a shootout between gangsters, and did not hibernate again until the fire at the Black Spot caused by the White Decency League. Each tragedy was a feast for the creature, sending it back to its slumber fully satisfied. Something peculiar is that for centuries it did not merely hunt, it also watched and learned. It studied humans as if it were a scientist, understanding their customs, fears, beliefs, and cultural symbols, all with the purpose of perfecting its ability to terrorize human beings. Across time, it understood that it needed to adapt to changing generations, adopting new shapes that would inspire trust before instilling terror. And at some point, it discovered that the figure of the clown was the perfect disguise, since children followed it without fear, attracted by the bright colors, the balloons, and its promises of fun. Thus, its most famous form was born, one that would first be known as Mr. Bob Gray, and later known by everyone as Pennywise the Dancing Clown. With the perfect facade now established, it ended up becoming the dominant force in Derry. As it learned more about its inhabitants, it shaped the atmosphere of the town according to its own interests. The entire town transformed into a territory built to its measure, a kind of personal domain where every corner, every shadow, and every silence seemed to exist solely to favor its presence. Pennywise had essentially turned Derry into its personal hunting ground, seeing all its inhabitants as delicious prey to play with.
You're supposed to say 3.
Remembering that due to its origin as an outsider, Pennywise never showed interest in living in plain sight. Instead, it preferred tight, damp, and dark spaces that reminded it of the void from which it came. Because of this, the sewers of Derry became its preferred home. They form a vast network of tunnels where it could move freely and appear wherever it needed. It is said that over time, the original blueprints of these structures were lost, making the system even more confusing and perfect for its purposes. Regarding its abilities, it is not just a shape-shifting entity. Its true capability lies in reflecting each person's deepest fears, adopting precisely what its victim instinctively dreads. In this way, it acts as a twisted mirror capable of manifesting the worst each mind can imagine, be it phobias, guilt, trauma, or resentment. And although it is often associated with childhood fear, it truly has no limitation when it comes to instilling terror in adults. In the novel and in the second film, it is clear that it has attacked and devoured people of all ages. One of the most notorious examples is when it attacks Adrian in 2016, after a group of homophobic teenagers throw him into the canal. It is theorized that it attacked him despite being an adult because he was already terrified from the assault, and because the creature had just awakened and was starving. This attack marked the beginning of the 27-year feeding and hibernation cycle. Even so, Pennywise generally prefers children for a very simple and already mentioned reason. Childhood fear is purer, more direct, and easier to provoke. By contrast, the fears of adults tend to be complex, abstract, or difficult to represent. After all, how would it visually manifest the fear of not being able to make ends meet, or the fear of not knowing whether a decision you made in the past was the right one? In contrast, a child's fears can be evoked with a simple transformation, like a werewolf or a leper vagabond. But before anything else, it must make first contact with its victim. And what better disguise to attract their attention than a smiling clown? Beyond fear, Pennywise also possesses the ability to manipulate and control those who serve its purposes, pushing them to commit atrocious acts under its influence. Henry Bowers is a clear example, as is the family that takes in Maddie in the first episode of Welcome to Derry. What is most unsettling is that a large portion of Derry's population, especially the adults, seems to perceive Pennywise's presence in one way or another. Some vaguely sense it, others prefer to ignore it, but almost no one takes action. Even the military has already noticed its influence and power, but it is as if the town itself had been conditioned to accept the tragedies that occur here as something normal. Over time, the inhabitants of Derry developed a sort of silent pact with the entity that lived beneath their feet. No one mentioned it explicitly, but everyone sensed that as long as they didn't interfere with whatever lived in the darkness, life in the town would continue as usual. That habit of looking the other way became part of Derry's identity. Many preferred to ignore the obvious, whether out of fear, apathy, or simple indifference. Even with this, one of Pennywise's most unsettling powers is its ability to distort reality. It can decide who sees its manifestations and who remains blind to them. A recent example of this is when Lily Bainbridge is in the supermarket. It distorts everything around her, though only she perceives it. The same happens in the novel, when Bill and Richie flee on their bicycles in broad daylight, chased by the entity, while the neighbors continue with their lives without noticing anything out of the ordinary. For it, controlling human perception is part of its game. Also, Pennywise does not devour its victims immediately. Instead, it prefers to shape the terror, savor it, and allow fear to reach its peak before attacking. Its method of acting is based on a combination of tricks, illusions, and psychological harassment designed to break the minds of its prey. Every scare is an ingredient, every vision a spice added to the emotional banquet it wants to consume. And many times part of the ritual consists of hiding itself from everyone who is not part of its selection. Another important aspect that is not discussed enough is that, in its physical form, it adopts feminine characteristics. This is described at the end of the novel, during the events of 1985, where it is discovered that the creature has laid a large number of eggs in its underground lair. The losers destroy them, although some readers have speculated for years about the possibility that one offspring may have survived. King, however, has never confirmed anything. With all the above established, and despite its overwhelming power, it does possess vulnerabilities. The first is its own pride. After existing for countless eras, convinced of its superiority, It developed an arrogance that prevented it from even conceiving the idea of being defeated. Its blind confidence became a weapon against itself. Even more disturbing is that, during almost its entire existence, it was completely unaware that it had a creator and did not know about the existence of Gan until the Losers Club began to truly challenge it. Somehow it never knew about Gan because it believed that only the turtle and itself existed. That revelation unsettled it, and it was the first time it felt something it had never experienced before: fear. Not because of a greater predator, nor because of the tower, but because of a group of children capable of challenging it and even killing it. Another important clarification is that it has no gender in its cosmic form, since this entity transcends any known human biological concept. But during the final battle, it adopts a feminine form, a kind of giant spider, and the book itself refers to it in the feminine. That is why it is described as female in that context, even though in reality it is a being of pure energy beyond gender or biology. Another one of its weaknesses comes, ironically, from its greatest ability: its capacity to change shape. This can be both an advantage and a disadvantage, and this is because Pennywise, like any living creature, must obey the laws of the form it inhabits. Therefore, if it changes shape, it becomes subject to the same vulnerabilities inherent to that form. But that is not enough. Whoever wants to hurt it must firmly believe they can do it, and no harm can be done if the belief is only halfway. For example, in the book, Pennywise transforms into a werewolf, and the losers attempt to kill it with silver slugs. At that moment, they all believed with absolute conviction that the silver would work, thanks to their high and pure imaginative power, typical of childhood. And indeed, when they shoot it with the silver slugs, it is wounded because it is subject to the vulnerabilities of a werewolf. Another important weakness, and as I explained before, is that it lives on two planes, in the form of the Deadlights in the Macroverse and on Earth, with the Pennywise form. But both planes are linked, so if one is harmed, the other suffers as well. At the end of the novel, the losers manage to destroy its physical form, the one that resembles a giant spider. That act, combined with the damage it suffered in the Deadlights during the mental battle it had with Bill through the ritual of Chud, brings about its death. Or does it? Let me explain. That which lived in the darkness could be invulnerable when it remained there. But it also existed on Earth, beneath Derry, in a physical form, and the physical could be killed, although its Deadlights form remained intact, though somewhat weakened. Finally, what worked against it so that it could be defeated was the talismanic and mystical power of the number 7 and the ritual of Chud. In general culture, everyone knows that 7 has a peculiar value, and in the book, the Losers Club is composed of 7 children. It was 7 losers against it in the first confrontation in 1958, and only 5 in the second confrontation in 1985. But let's remember that the losers were not alone. We cannot give them all the credit for defeating the cosmic entity, but also to other forces that conspired against it, forces far more powerful than Pennywise itself. We are talking about Gan and the Turtle Maturin. The Losers Club had the support of these two entities to defeat it, since it was in the interest of Gan and the Turtle to stop Pennywise, who represented a danger to the harmony that the Dark Tower maintains across all worlds. Thus, by combining all these elements, the unbreakable conviction of the protagonists, physical attacks, the ritual of Chud, its vulnerability to its own form, and the silent cosmic support of Gan and the Turtle, Pennywise's physical form on Earth was finally destroyed. This is the true origin of it, a cosmic entity born from the Prim, naturally opposed to Maturin, drawn to human imagination and fear, and confined between worlds until it found a breach into Earth. Derry is not just its lair, it is its hunting territory, shaped by centuries of manipulation and influence. And Pennywise is not a simple monster, but the preferred mask of a force that transcends biology, time, and reality itself. Let's hope the new episodes of Welcome to Derry reveal more information about this entity. And with that, we've reached the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on the notification bell to stay up to date with all my new videos. I also want to give a special shout out to the channel members. Thanks to you and all of our viewers, we can keep diving into these kinds of disturbing and thought-provoking stories. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. And if you want to support the channel and get access to exclusive content, early videos, and other perks, I invite you to become a member. Just click the join button below this video. See you in the next one. Hey, don't go just yet. If you enjoyed this video, I've got another one I think you'll love. Check it out.